Pricing mistakes to avoid when you are pricing your contracts. Do you struggle with pricing at times? You perhaps sent a price, you quoted a price, and later on you're like, okay, that was not the right price. I should have changed, I should not have charged that price. Whatever the reason, there are times you might have struggled with pricing, or you did the wrong price and you had to go back and say, okay, I think I need to change, or you have had to even absorb that loss, that deficiency in pricing. This is what we dive into for the next few minutes. Key pricing mistakes to avoid when you are pricing your projects or your contracts. So let us get started. Number one, you want to ensure that you are clear on the scope of the project. And for sure, the scope of the project will change. That happens. That's fine. However, you do want to be clear that from the beginning you are very, very clear on the scope. How do you get clear on the scope? You make sure you're asking the right questions. You make sure there is communication and that both parties are understanding this is what we want to be done, this is what we need to be done, this is what we are expecting to be done. So you do want to ensure that you are clear on the scope. And I'll quickly say too that the scope can change. And when the scope does change, you want to ensure that you are weighing that, examining the scope, to say, okay, do I need to charge more? Is it okay for me to absorb this change? You want to be clear about that too, because another thing that can mess up your pricing and is that the scope changes. It's much more than you can accommodate in terms of cost, and you might not want to talk about it, and then again you're at a loss. When the project is completed, you are in a loss position, and that is why it is very, very important to be clear about the scope. And I do know that some persons, depending on where you're coming from, might be a bit apprehensive to ask a lot of questions, but I've found that for me, the more questions that I do ask, the more I'm clear about the scope of what is expected, what is required, then I can deliver appropriately. So when I'm called for a speaking engagement or a course or something or project, I'm very clear. I ask a lot of questions, so I'm understanding what is it that is required of me, what is it that is needed, so I can deliver appropriately, as well as we can have the right cost structure in mind. Because if you're in a situation where this person is thinking you're just going to cover this area, and then you're thinking, oh, that wasn't what I had in mind, there is disagreement there of both minds. So what is happening is that you are not able to really agree on what's happening. So you're moving into this project, into this contract without agreement, with ambiguity, with misunderstanding. So you do want to ensure that your scope of the project is clear. Both parties are, understanding what is it that is needed. And you will find too that, going over the documents, that will help you as well. So make sure you are clear about the scope of the project. Good morning, guys. Hello, everyone there. So you want to make sure that you are clear about the scope of the project when pricing your contracts. Pricing can make or break your business. I do want you to remember that. So you can have the wrong price. It flows into so many areas in your business. It impacts the revenue for sure. It impacts your cash flow. It impacts your profitability. So you do want to ensure that you are having a system in place in your business where you are pricing correctly. The other mistake I find that happens often is that you are not clear on the costs that are involved, right? You are not clear on all the costs that are going to be related to this project, related to this contract. And when you are not clear on the costs, what happens is that you have costs overrun. So you have direct costs that you can quickly see, such as materials, the supplies, the labor. However, there are overhead costs that you need to apportion a part of these costs to the project. So that might look like rent, insurance. It can, all those other costs, which, overheads, though they are not directly connected to the project, but in the wider scope of things, they do impact the project. That makes it a little simpler. So be clear about the cost. So if you're going to be ordering material supplies, you want to be clear, okay, what is the price point from the supplier? What are the options? Do I have 3 suppliers I can think about? What are the cost ranges? You want to be clear on the dollar amount of the costs that are involved. You want to be clear about the options. If we go to pick up the material, how does that look like versus them delivering it? You want to be exploring the various cost options and be clear that you are, you know, picking up these cost options in your project analysis of the cost quickly. You want to do that from day one because that's going to be impacting how you quote and how you price your contract, your project. So you do want to ensure that you are clear on the costs that are involved, the various costs. And I do see sometimes, again, where you are not clear on the cost. You thought it was going to cost this amount, that, and costs do change. However, you want to make sure that you're as close as possible, right? Sometimes there might be exchange rates involved. You want to be factoring those variables in how you're costing your project as well. The third thing is that to help with the pricing of your project, you do want to ensure that you are having a buffer. What does that mean? So that's like a contingency. So just in case things don't go as planned, my little guys. So just in case things, my little boys are up. Yeah, so just in case things don't go as planned, you do want to ensure that you are budgeting for a contingency. That can be 5%. I've seen it at 10%. It all depends on what's involved in the project and the scope. Why do you need that contingency? That contingency is there in case something happens which you never planned for, and it happens, right? So it could be that you thought this supplier was going to deliver, but because of the supply chain dynamics, you had to change. It could be because of exchange rate. Different reasons. You want to have that contingency buffer there in your project costing. So pricing can make or break your business. And you do want to ensure that you have a system in your business where you are pricing projects out correctly and accurately. Also, another thing which I'll quickly talk about is you need to know the difference between markup and margin, right? You need to know, okay, what does margin means? What does markup means? Am I going to be pricing in regards to markup, or am I doing it in regards to margin? There's a different one is based on cost, one is based on the selling price, the profits. So you do want to ensure that you are clear about these areas, these variables when you are, deciding on the pricing of your projects, of your contracts. So there are a lot more mistakes that should be avoided, but I just wanted to talk about these 3 today. You want to ensure that you are very clear on the scope. And yes, the scope can change, but you want to be clear, both everybody in the contract, in the whole contract negotiations needs to be clear on what is the scope. If you have the wrong scope, it filters into so many areas. You're going to have the wrong, duties. You might, if you have the wrong scope, you might think, okay, I needed 10 persons when you really needed 5 or 6. So having the right scope of the project will help you with getting into the right costing. It's going to help you with the right contingency. And also you need to understand, are you using markup or margin in your pricing? So these are mistakes that I see often being done when it comes to pricing your projects or your contracts. I'll quickly add to the importance of reviewing. So at times you might say, okay, this is what I had in mind. You go through the project, you don't review what happened. So you need to review your projects, see what went wrong, what went right, what can be duplicated in the future, what can be avoided. So having a review of your contracts as well is very, 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 very important. It's very useful, and you will see the impact of these scenarios in your business when you implement them. So if you are at a point where you're like, okay, I'm not too sure just what step to take or what's going wrong, what's going right, definitely you can reach out to see how I can help you, or I can refer you to somebody else who'll be able to support you in other areas, right? So you can reach out to me, you can send me a message, and I'll be happy to talk more to you. And yes, my email is info at the cashlab.org. So signing off, this is Kersha Campbell, passionate about helping those business owners, your business in the commercial construction space, the construction industry. You are struggling with the financial side of things in your business. You're like, okay, I don't even know where to start. I don't understand my numbers. I don't have enough cash flow. I have cash flow but no systems. I have cash flow but I need more cash flow. Different scenarios. So we partner to make things turn around in your business. So until next time, signing off. Bye guys.